In the mid-1990s, when R&B was being polished for the radio and hip-hop beats dominated the charts, a quiet storm began to brew. A man from Richmond, Virginia, soft-spoken, deeply spiritual, and impossibly talented, was about to change the sound of soul music forever. His name was D'Angelo. He didn't crave the spotlight. He didn't chase the fame. He chased feeling. He chased truth. He wanted to make music that could touch the soul, not just fill the airwaves, but behind that genius was a man who would struggle with the very thing that made him special. This is the story of D'Angelo, his rise, his fall, and his redemption. The man who brought neo-soul to life and nearly lost himself in the process. Michael Eugene Archer was born on February 11, 1974 in Richmond, Virginia. His father was a Pentecostal preacher. His mother, a devoted woman of faith. From the very beginning, the sound of gospel and the rhythm of prayer surrounded his life. He started playing piano at just 3 years old, listening carefully to the chords of the church organ, trying to recreate them by ear. By the time he turned 10, people in the local congregation whispered that the boy had a calling, not just for faith, but for music. But even as a child, Michael knew that the church wasn't the limit of his gift. He felt something bigger, a pull toward the heart of music itself. He wanted to blend the sacred and the sensual, the divine and the human. He wanted to make people feel again. As a teenager, he spent endless nights studying records by Marvin Gaye, Prince, Curtis Mayfield, and Al Green. He wasn't just listening, he was learning. Learning how to build emotion through melody, how to whisper pain through harmony, and how to tell truth through sound. By his late teens, he was performing around Richmond, slowly crafting a sound that didn't belong to any genre. It was gospel at heart. Funk in rhythm, jazz in structure, and pure soul in delivery. He moved to New York City to chase the dream, and soon his demos reached the offices of EMI Records. In 1994, he signed his first major record deal. The world didn't know it yet, but something big was coming. In 1995, D'Angelo released his debut album, Brown Sugar. It was smooth, raw, and unlike anything else on the radio. Where others used machines, D'Angelo used live instruments. Where others followed trends, he reached backward to the golden age of soul and made it feel new again. The title track, Brown Sugar, became an instant classic. Lady, Cruisin', and Me and Those Dreamin'. Eyes of Mine all carried the same magic, a fusion of old-school warmth and new-school groove. Critics hailed D'Angelo as the savior of soul. Music fans called him the new Prince, and a movement began to form, one that would soon be called neo-soul. He wasn't alone. Alongside artists like Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, Maxwell, and Angie Stone, D'Angelo became the face of a new kind of R&B, raw, real, and rooted in feeling. But while the world celebrated his success, D'Angelo himself was already restless. He wasn't interested in fame. He was chasing something deeper. He wanted to make music that wasn't just heard, but felt. He wanted perfection. So after Brown Sugar, he disappeared. 5 years of silence followed. Fans wondered where he had gone. But D'Angelo was in the studio, searching for something he couldn't quite define. When he finally returned in the year 2000, he brought with him an album that would change everything. Voodoo. Voodoo wasn't designed to be a hit. It was slow, gritty, unpredictable, and full of groove. It was the sound of a man surrendering completely to the music. From the first notes of Playa Playa to the hypnotic rhythm of Devil's Pie and the haunting beauty of Untitled, How Does It Feel? Voodoo felt less like an album and more like a spiritual experience. It was recorded almost entirely live, with musicians improvising in long, late-night sessions at Electric Lady Studios, the same place where Jimi Hendrix once recorded. Every snare, every bass line, every breath carried a sense of human imperfection, and that's what made it perfect. The album won Grammy Awards, topped charts, and influenced an entire generation of musicians. D'Angelo had achieved what he wanted, true artistry, unfiltered and alive. But with Voodoo came something unexpected, fame. and with fame came pressure. The music video for Untitled, How Does It Feel, made D'Angelo an overnight sex symbol. Women screamed his name. Magazines plastered his body on covers, and concert crowds demanded he take his shirt off. The image began to overshadow the art. What the world saw as sensuality, D'Angelo saw as betrayal. He felt objectified. Stripped of his soul, he didn't want to be the image. He wanted to be the music. Slowly, the pressure began to eat away at him. Touring became chaos. The spotlight grew unbearable. D'Angelo turned to alcohol and drugs to numb the pain. The man who once sang about love and light was now lost in the darkness of his own success. By the early 2000s, the world had lost him again. There were arrests, car crashes, failed rehab attempts. His friends and collaborators tried to reach out, but D'Angelo withdrew even deeper. The silence returned, but this time, it wasn't artistic, it was survival. Years passed. The neo-soul movement he helped create moved on without him. Younger artists carried the torch, while fans quietly wondered if D'Angelo would ever come back. For a long time, it seemed like he wouldn't, but even in the quiet, D'Angelo was healing. He was rebuilding himself, body, mind, and spirit. He was facing the demons that fame had brought, and somewhere in that darkness, the music started calling him again. In December 2014, without warning, D'Angelo released a new album. No interviews, no promotion, no announcement, just one message to the world: Black Messiah. The timing was extraordinary. Just days after the Ferguson protests, Black Messiah arrived like a sermon. It wasn't just music, it was a message. It spoke of love, faith, race, and resistance. It was political, poetic, and personal all at once. D'Angelo had transformed from a tortured artist into a prophet of sound. Songs like Really Love, The Charade, and Sugar Daddy carried the same soul as Voodoo, but with a harder truth. It was a man reborn, wiser, weathered, and free. Critics hailed it as one of the greatest comeback albums of all time. Fans cried tears of joy, and musicians across the world called it a masterpiece. After 14 years of silence, D'Angelo had returned, not to reclaim his fame, but to reclaim his peace. D'Angelo's story is more than a biography. It's a mirror, showing how greatness can become a burden, and how silence can become salvation. He taught the world that true artistry doesn't come from fame, but from vulnerability, that the soul of music isn't in perfection, but in honesty, that even the broken can create beauty. His influence can be heard everywhere, in the grooves of Anderson .Park, the emotion of Her, the depth of Frank Ocean, and the soul of Giveon. Every time a new artist picks up a microphone and dares to sing with raw emotion, a piece of D'Angelo's spirit lives on. Today, D'Angelo remains a mysterious figure. He doesn't post online, he rarely gives interviews. He appears only when the music calls him, and maybe that's how it should be. Because D'Angelo never belonged to the noise of the world. He belonged to the silence between the notes. His rise was meteoric, his fall was tragic, but his redemption, his quiet return was divine. He showed us that art isn't about staying in the spotlight, it's about staying true to the soul. In a world obsessed with fame, D'Angelo chose freedom. In a world that demanded sound, he chose silence. And that silence still echoes today. D'Angelo once said, "The music is God's voice. You don't play it, it plays through you." And maybe that's the secret behind his genius. He didn't create the music, he became it. And in doing so, he gave us something timeless, a reminder that real soul never dies, it just waits until the world is ready to listen again.